The massive council chamber on Galactic Station Prime buzzed with hundreds of different languages. Beings from across the galaxy sat in their floating seats, their forms ranging from the elegant crystal structures of the Vorthek to the writhing tentacles of the deep space Mollery. Today was special. Today, a new species wanted to join their ancient alliance. Ambassador Keth 7 of the Zenthari Empire looked down at the small bipedal creatures standing in the center of the chamber. The humans looked so ordinary. 2 arms, 2 legs, and soft, pink skin that seemed fragile compared to his own armored carapace. Their leader, a female called Ambassador Martinez, stood calmly despite being surrounded by beings who could crush her without effort. Humans of the Sol system. Keth 7's voice echoed through the chamber's translation systems. You seek membership in the Galactic Council. Tell us why we should accept such a young and untested species. Ambassador Martinez stepped forward. Her voice was steady as she spoke. We bring new ideas and fresh perspectives. We've shown we can work with others and solve problems. Our exploration fleets have already made peaceful contact with 17 species in our local sector. A rumbling laugh came from the Gorvani delegate, whose mountain-like form shook the platform he sat on. Fresh perspectives, he repeated with amusement. You've been traveling between stars for less than 200 of your Earth years. We have been doing this for millions. Your technology is primitive, added Counselor Ulik of the Hegemony. Her voice was like singing crystals. Your ships use chemical rockets and metal hulls. You still use electromagnetic radiation to communicate across space. Most of our member species had abandoned such crude methods before your planet even had. Complex life. Martinez remained calm. We may not have your advanced technology, but we've proven we can adapt and learn. We've survived wars, plagues, and natural disasters that would have destroyed weaker species. Survived, scoffed another delegate. Any species that reaches the stars has survived. That proves nothing. Keth 7 raised one of his 4 arms for silence. A cruel smile spread across his face. The other council members had discussed this privately. Before the humans arrived, they had agreed on a test that would solve the human problem permanently. Very well, Keth 7 announced. We will give you a chance to prove your worth. But membership in the Galactic Council requires more than mere survival. It requires the ability to handle the most dangerous challenges our galaxy presents. He gestured. With 2 arms and a massive holographic display appeared above the chamber. It showed a region of space that looked wrong somehow. Stars bent their light in impossible curves. Spatial distortions created swirling patterns of color and darkness. At the center sat the remains of what had once been a great civilization. This is the Void Reaches, Keth 7 continued. For 300 standard years, it has been under absolute quarantine. No ship that enters survives more than 6 hours. The space itself is hostile to life. The display zoomed in to show the hazards in detail. Gravitational fields that could crush a starship in seconds. Temporal anomalies that aged matter to dust in moments. Worst of all, energy beings that fed on the metal and electronics of any vessel foolish enough to enter their domain. The ancient Kaptari Empire once ruled this region, explained Counselor Ulak. They were more advanced than any current council member. Their technology was so sophisticated, it seemed like magic. Yet something destroyed them utterly, leaving only ruins and these hostile phenomena. Many valuable resources remain in the ruins, added the Gorvani delegate. Quantum crystals worth more than entire star systems. Data cores containing knowledge that could advance our science by millennia. Archaeological treasures beyond imagination. Keth 7's smile grew wider. 17 expeditions have attempted to enter the Void Reaches. The Korthan Exploratory Fleet sent their most advanced ships with quantum shielding and probability engines. Gone in 4 hours. The Veshan Archaeological Society used remote drones with the finest sensors in the galaxy. The drones were destroyed before sending back a single data packet. The hegemony's finest scientists spent 50 years developing specialized equipment, Counselor Ulek added. Temporal stabilizers, gravitational compensators, and energy-dampening fields. Our expedition lasted 6 hours and 37 minutes. That remains the record. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Ambassador Martinez looked up at the display, studying the swirling chaos of the void reaches. Her expression was thoughtful rather than afraid. "This is your test," Keth 7 announced with obvious satisfaction. "Clear the void reaches. Retrieve the quantum crystals and data cores from the Keptari ruins. Prove that humanity deserves a place among the galactic powers." A murmur ran through the chamber. Several delegates made sounds that could have been laughter or expressions of sympathy. Everyone knew this was not a test but an execution. The Council was giving the humans an impossible task as a polite way of saying no. "We understand the risks," Martinez replied after a long moment, "but we accept your challenge." Keth 7 had expected her to ask for time to prepare or request additional information. Instead, she simply nodded as if they had offered her a difficult but achievable assignment. "Excellent," he said, trying to hide his surprise. "You have 1 standard year to complete this task. When you fail, we will consider your application for Council membership permanently rejected." "When we succeed," Martinez corrected quietly, "we expect full voting rights and access to all Council resources and territories." The confidence in her voice sent a chill through several delegates. Surely the humans understood what they were facing. The void reaches had killed beings far more advanced than these primitive newcomers. Their crude ships and simple technology would be torn apart by forces that had destroyed the galaxy's most sophisticated expeditions. As the session ended and the delegates began to file out, Keth 7 felt a moment of uncertainty. The human ambassador had not seemed worried or afraid. If anything, she had looked excited by the challenge. He dismissed the feeling. In a few months, they would receive word that another expedition had vanished into the void reaches. The human problem would be solved, and the Council could return to more important matters. What Kef 7 did not know was that Ambassador Martinez was already composing a message to Earth. It would reach Admiral Chun at Fleet Command within days, along with all the data about the void reaches. And Admiral Chun had spent her entire career dealing with situations that other people called impossible. The humans were going to the void reaches, and they were going to call it interesting. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Hughes Resilient, watching the swirling chaos of the void reaches grow larger on the main screen. Behind her, the crew worked at their stations with the calm efficiency that came from years of dealing with dangerous situations together. "Well, that looks properly terrifying," commented Lieutenant Rodriguez from the engineering station. He was studying the sensor readings with the same expression he might use to examine a broken coffee machine. "Gravitational shears strong enough to turn us into spaghetti, temporal distortions that could age us to dust, and energy beings that eat spaceships for breakfast. Don't forget the spatial anomalies that make navigation impossible," added Navigator Kim from her position. "According to these readings, normal spacetime doesn't exist in there. Our computers can't even plot a proper course." Dr. Foster looked up from the science station where she had been reviewing all the data the Galactic Council had provided. 17 previous expeditions, all using the most advanced technology in the galaxy. None survived more than 6 hours. "Captain." Chun turned around to face her crew. These were people she had served with for 8 years through pirate attacks, equipment failures, and more than one situation where they probably should have died. If anyone could pull off the impossible, it was this group. "So what do you think?" she asked. "Should we turn around and tell the Council we changed our minds?" Engineer Rodriguez grinned. "Captain, with all due respect, that sounds boring as hell. When's the last time we had a proper challenge?" The Andromedans said our ship couldn't survive their solar storm fields, reminded Pilot Jackson. We not only survived, we mapped them. The Xanthari said no one could navigate the Broken Maze Nebula. We turned it into a shortcut. Those energy beings that eat metal, Dr. Foster mused thoughtfully. I wonder what they actually eat. Energy signatures, specific alloys. If we could figure out what they want, maybe we could work with them instead of fighting them. Navigation Officer Kim was already plotting entry vectors. The gravitational shears follow patterns. They're chaotic, but not random. If we time our entry right and use manual piloting instead of computer navigation, we might be able to thread between them. Captain Chun nodded. This was exactly the response she had expected. Where other species saw impossible dangers, her crew saw interesting problems to solve. What about equipment? She asked. The Council made it clear we're on our own. No advanced quantum shields or temporal stabilizers. Rodriguez pulled up an inventory display. We've got 3 backup fusion reactors, redundant life support systems, emergency hull patches, portable welding units, and enough spare parts to rebuild half the ship. Oh, and that crate of mining explosives we picked up at Titan Station. Mining explosives? Dr. Foster raised an eyebrow. You never know when you might need to blow something up, Rodriguez explained cheerfully. It's like my grandfather always said, when in doubt, add more firepower. Captain Chun walked over to the tactical display showing the void reaches. The alien expeditions had all used the same approach, send in their most advanced ships with the best shields and sensors, hoping technology could overcome the hostile environment. What if we try something different? She said slowly. Every other expedition went in trying to fight the environment. What if we go in expecting to adapt to it? Dr. Foster nodded thoughtfully. Treat it like a hostile planet instead of a space anomaly. Bring equipment that can be repaired and modified on the fly. Use simple, robust systems instead of sophisticated ones that break when conditions get extreme. The Resilient wasn't built for exploration, Pilot Jackson pointed out. She's a cargo hauler. Heavy construction, redundant systems, designed. Keep working, even when half the equipment fails. Exactly, Captain Chun smiled. The aliens sent their finest ships into the void reaches. Elegant, sophisticated vessels with quantum this and temporal that. We're going to send in a workhorse that was built to survive anything. Lieutenant Williams looked up from the communication station. Captain, I'm receiving a priority message from Admiral Torres back on Earth. Put it through. Admiral Torres appeared on the main screen, her weathered face serious, but not worried. Behind her, Captain Chun could see the bustling activity of Fleet Command. Sarah, I've been reviewing the data package Ambassador Martinez sent us about the void reaches. Command wants to make sure you understand what you're walking into. We understand, Admiral. Hostile environment, energy beings that eat spaceships, 17 previous expeditions destroyed. Standard Tuesday afternoon. Admiral Torres actually smiled at that. I thought you might say something like that. Listen, the Science Division has been analyzing the alien data. They think the previous expeditions failed because they relied too heavily on automated systems and energy shields. Our thoughts exactly, Captain Chun replied. We're planning to go in with manual controls and mechanical backups for everything. Good. Also, Dr. Park from Xenobiology thinks those energy beings might not be hostile. The alien reports describe them as predatory, but their behavior sounds more like scavenging than hunting. They might be trying to survive in there, just like any expedition would be. Dr. Foster leaned forward with interest. That matches my analysis. If they're stuck in the void reaches, they might be as much victims of the environment as any ship that enters. One more thing, Admiral Torres continued. The Council is monitoring your mission. They expect you to fail, and they're probably hoping you'll turn back before entering the void reaches. Don't give them the satisfaction. Wouldn't dream of it, Admiral. After the communication ended, Captain Chun looked around at her crew. They were already making preparations, checking systems, and reviewing procedures. No one looked afraid or uncertain. If anything, they seemed eager to get started. All right, people. Standard deep space protocols. Triple check everything, pack extra coffee, and remember that if something can go wrong, it probably will. Any questions? Just one, said Rodriguez. When we pull this off and make the aliens look like amateurs, do you think they'll finally stop calling our technology primitive? Probably not, Captain Chung laughed. But they might start calling it effective. The Resilient moved toward the edge of the void reaches, her crew preparing for what every other species in the galaxy considered certain death. Captain Chun watched the swirling chaos ahead and felt the familiar excitement that came before a challenging mission. The aliens had sent their best and brightest into the void reaches, armed with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Now, it was time to see what humans could accomplish with determination, creativity, and a healthy disrespect for the word impossible. The Resilient shuddered as it crossed into the void reaches. Immediately, every sensor on the ship started screaming warnings. Gravitational fields pulled the hull in 3 different directions at once. The main computer crashed twice in the first 10 minutes. Well, that's not good, muttered Pilot Jackson as he switched to manual controls. His hands moved across the control board with practiced ease, ignoring the computer's confused calculations and flying by instinct instead. Captain Chun gripped her command chair as the ship bucked like an angry horse. Status report. Main sensors are down, called out Dr. Foster. The gravitational interference is scrambling everything. I'm switching to backup systems and visual scanning. Hull stress is within acceptable limits, Rodriguez reported from engineering, the old girls holding together. Whatever they built the Resilient out of, it's tougher than alien fancy metal. Lieutenant Williams looked up from communications. Captain, we're getting some strange readings on the emergency frequencies. It's not communications exactly, but there's definitely a pattern. Can you isolate it? Working on it. The signal is coming from multiple sources, all moving information about 2 kilometers off our starboard side. Captain Chun moved to the observation window and peered out into the swirling chaos of the void reaches. At first she saw nothing but the strange light patterns and distorted space. Then something moved in the distance. There, she pointed, about 15 degrees off the starboard bow. The crew gathered at the windows to look. Floating through the CUNA hostile environment were creatures unlike anything in the galactic databases. They looked like jellyfish made of pure energy, their translucent forms pulsing with soft light. They moved gracefully through space, completely unaffected by the gravitational shears that were making the Resilient groan with stress. Beautiful, whispered Dr. Foster. Are those the energy beings the aliens warned us about? Must be, Captain Chun replied. But they don't look hostile. They look curious. The energy beings were indeed moving closer to the ship, but their approach seemed cautious rather than aggressive. They circled the Resilient at a respectful distance, their forms pulsing with what almost looked like communication patterns. Captain, Dr. Foster said slowly, I don't think these creatures are predators. Look at their behavior. They're studying us, not hunting us. Rodriguez was monitoring the ship's energy output. Interesting. Our power levels are dropping, but not because of damage. Something is drawing small amounts of energy from our secondary systems. The creatures? Captain Chun asked. Maybe, but it's not enough to hurt us. It's like they're taking tiny sips instead of trying to drain us dry. Dr. Foster was already pulling up her analysis of the alien expedition reports. This explains everything. The previous expeditions used ships powered by exotic energy sources, quantum reactors, zero-point fields, temporal batteries. all very high-energy systems. So when these creatures tried to feed, Captain Chun understood immediately. They caused massive power failures. Exactly. But our ship runs on simple fusion reactors with plenty of backup power. We can afford to share a little energy without losing critical systems. Lieutenant Williams had been working on the signal patterns. Captain, I think I've figured out their communication method. They're using electromagnetic pulses in sequence. It's almost like Morse code. Can we respond? Maybe. If I route power through the secondary communications array and pulse it in patterns, we might be able to talk to them. Captain Chun made a decision that would have horrified the Galactic Council. Instead of trying to fight or avoid the energy beings, she was going to attempt first contact with the creatures that had destroyed 17 alien expeditions. Do it, she ordered. Send them a simple mathematical sequence. Prime numbers, maybe. Williams began transmitting. The energy beings responded immediately, their forms brightening and pulsing in complex patterns. Within minutes, they had established a basic communication protocol. They're definitely intelligent, Dr. Foster observed as she watched the exchange. And they seem excited to be talking to someone. The largest of the energy beings approached the ship more closely. Through the electromagnetic communication system, concepts began to emerge. The beings were not native to the void reaches. They had been trapped here when the ancient Kepturi civilization collapsed, creating the spatial anomalies that made the region so dangerous. They've been stuck here for thousands of years, Williams translated as the communication continued. They feed on energy to survive, but the environment here doesn't provide enough. When ships enter the void reaches, they try to take just a little energy, but alien technology is too sensitive. So they accidentally kill the people they're trying to get help from. Captain Chun realized. They're not predators, they're refugees. Rodriguez had an idea. What if we set up a feeding station? We've got 3 backup reactors. We could spare some power on a regular basis. You want to turn our ship into a floating restaurant? Dr. Foster asked with amusement. Why not? We're going to be here for a while anyway, trying to reach the ruins. Might as well make some friends. Over the next few hours, Rodriguez and his engineering team rigged up a system that would allow the energy beings to feed from the ship's backup reactors without affecting critical systems. The creatures were delighted with the arrangement, and more began to gather around the Resilient. This is incredible, Dr. Foster said as she watched dozens of energy beings feeding peacefully from their improvised energy source. We've solved a problem that's existed for thousands of years just by sharing our lunch. The energy beings, grateful for the first reliable food source they had found in millennia, began to provide assistance. They could navigate the gravitational anomalies with ease, and they started guiding the Resilient through the worst of the spatial distortions. They're showing us safe paths, Pilot Jackson reported with amazement. Areas where the gravitational fields are stable enough for us to pass through. Captain Chun watched as her ship moved deeper into the void reaches, escorted by a growing number of energy beings who treated the humans like long-lost friends. The alien expeditions had entered this region prepared for war against hostile forces. The humans had entered prepared to make new friends. Captain, Navigator Kim called out, I'm detecting solid matter ahead. Large structures, partially buried in an asteroid field. The Keptari ruins? Has to be. The energy beings are leading us straight to them. As the Resilient approached the ancient ruins, Captain Chen reflected on how different this mission had become from what anyone expected. The aliens had sent their finest warriors and most advanced technology into the void reaches, viewing it as a battle to be won through superior force. The humans had sent a cargo ship with a crew willing to share their coffee and their backup power with anyone who seemed hungry. Sometimes, the simple approach worked better than the sophisticated one. The ancient Kepturi ruins floated in space like the skeleton of a giant beast. Massive structures twisted and broken, held together by fields of energy that flickered like dying stars. Around the ruins, the largest concentration of gravitational anomalies in the entire void reaches created a maze of crushing forces and twisted space. "Well, that's not intimidating at all," commented Lieutenant Rodriguez as he studied the sensor readings. "The good news is we found the ruins. The bad news is they're protected by a defense grid that could turn us into atoms." Captain Chun stood at the observation window, watching the energy beings that now escorted their ship. Over the past 3 days, more had joined their group until nearly 100 of the creatures surrounded the Resilient like a living constellation. "What kind of defenses are we looking at?" she asked. Dr. Foster pulled up her analysis on the main screen. "Quantum disruptor beams. The Keptari built them to fire automatically at anything that approaches the ruins. According to our scans, they're powered by the same energy source that's keeping the ruins from falling apart. The alien expeditions that got this far tried to disable the defense grid with electromagnetic pulse weapons," Navigator Kim added. "The grid adapted and became stronger." "Of course it did," Rodriguez muttered. "Ancient super-civilization probably built their defenses to learn from attacks. The more you shoot at it, the better it gets at shooting back." Pilot Jackson was studying the approach vectors. The gravitational fields around the ruins form natural corridors, but the defense grid covers all of them. There's no way to approach without being detected. Captain Chun walked over to the communication station where Lieutenant Williams was still maintaining contact with the energy beings. "Ask our friends if they know anything about the defense system." The electromagnetic pulses flew back and forth as Williams translated. The largest energy being, which the crew had started calling Elder, provided information that made everyone stop what they were doing. "Elder says the defense grid doesn't shoot at them," Williams reported. "The system recognizes them as Keptari, allies from before the collapse. They used to maintain the energy systems in the ruins, so they can get close to the ruins without being attacked?" Dr. Foster asked. "Not just close. Elder says they can access the central power core that runs the whole defense grid." Rodriguez perked up with interest. "Can they shut it down?" "That's the problem. The grid is the only thing keeping the ruins stable. If they shut it down completely, the whole structure will collapse and destroy everything inside." Captain Chun studied the tactical display showing the ruins and their defenses. Every other expedition had tried to fight their way through the defense grid using superior technology. The aliens thought like military commanders, trying to overcome the defenses with better weapons. "What if we don't try to shut it down?" she said slowly. "What if we try to confuse it instead? Confuse a 1,000-year-old alien defense system?" Rodriguez asked. "I like the way you think, Captain. What did you have in mind?" Captain Chun was already forming a plan that would probably give the Galactic Council heart attacks if they knew about it. "The grid is designed to protect the ruins from attackers. But what if we don't attack? What if we just visit?" Dr. Foster raised an eyebrow. "Visit a heavily defended alien ruin in the middle of the most dangerous region of space? Think about it. The defense grid shoots at ships that approach with weapons powered up and shields raised. That's what every previous expedition did. They came in ready for a fight. But we're not here to fight," Pilot Jackson realized. "We're here to collect artifacts and data cores. We're more like archaeologists than soldiers." Lieutenant Williams had been listening to the conversation with growing excitement. "Elder says the Keptari defense system has different protocols for different types of visitors. Military approaches get military responses. Scientific expeditions get different treatment. So if we approach like scientists instead of warriors?" Rodriguez asked. "The grid might let us through," Captain Chun finished. "But first we need to prove we're not a threat." The plan they developed over the next few hours would have been impossible for any other species in the galaxy. It required a level of trust and cooperation that most Civilizations couldn't achieve with beings they had just met. The energy beings would approach the ruins first, using their access to partially disable the defense grid's weapon systems without shutting down the stabilizing fields. Meanwhile, the Resilient would approach with all weapons powered down, shields offline, and broadcasting scientific survey codes that Dr. Foster found in the Kepturi language database. "This is either brilliant or completely insane," Rodriguez observed as he prepared to shut down all of the ship's defensive systems. "Probably both," Captain Chun agreed. "But insane plans are the only ones that work in places like this." The approach began slowly. The energy beings moved ahead of the ship, their forms pulsing in complex patterns as they communicated with systems that had been dormant for centuries. Ancient Kaptari technology responded to their touch, defense protocols shifting from active hostility to cautious monitoring. "The grid is powering down its main weapons," Dr. Foster reported, "but it's still scanning us. I think it's trying to figure out what we are." "Broadcasting scientific codes now," Williams announced. "Let's hope the translation program got them right." For several tense minutes, nothing happened. The Resilient drifted slowly toward the ruins while ancient sensors examined every inch of the ship. Then, to everyone's amazement, a corridor of light appeared in the defense grid. "I'll be damned," Rodriguez whispered. "It's giving us a safe passage." "The grid recognizes us as a scientific expedition," Dr. Foster said with wonder. "It's actually helping us reach the ruins safely." As they moved through the corridor of light, more systems activated around the ruins. Docking bays that had been sealed for 1,000 years began to open. Landing lights flickered to life along ancient platforms. "Elder says the ruins are welcoming." U.S., Williams translated. "The Kaptari built their defenses to protect their knowledge, not to hide it. They wanted worthy explorers to find their discoveries someday." Captain Chun watched as her ship approached a docking bay large enough to hold vessels 10 times the size of the Resilient. The ancient civilization had built on a scale that dwarfed anything in the current galaxy. "Take us in, Jackson," she ordered. "Nice and easy." As the ship settled onto the ancient docking platform, Captain Chun reflected on how they had succeeded, where 17 more advanced expeditions had failed. The aliens had approached the ruins, like conquerors trying to take treasure by force. The humans had approached like visitors hoping to learn from their hosts. Sometimes, respect worked better than superior firepower. 3 weeks later, Captain Chun stood in the cargo bay of the Resilient, watching her crew load the last of the Kepturi data cores into storage containers. The ancient crystalline devices hummed with stored knowledge that would advance galactic science by centuries. "That's the last of them," Rodriguez announced as he sealed the final container. 17 data cores, 43 quantum crystals, and enough archaeological samples to keep the Zen archaeologists busy for decades. Dr. Foster looked up from her portable scanner where she had been cataloging their discoveries. "The medical data alone will revolutionize treatment for dozens of diseases." The Keptari were incredibly advanced in biological sciences. "What about the energy beings?" Navigator Kim asked. "Are they coming with us?" Captain Chun smiled as she looked out the cargo bay window. The energy beings had been busy for the past week, working with the ancient Keptari systems to repair damage that had accumulated over 1,000 years. Elder and several others had decided to stay with the ruins to continue the restoration work, but many wanted to explore the galaxy beyond the void reaches. 23 of them have asked for passage to civilized space," she replied. "Apparently they're curious about what the galaxy has become since they were trapped here." Lieutenant Williams finished his final communication check with Elder. "The ones staying behind say they'll maintain the ruins as a research station. They're inviting human scientists to return any time for joint studies." "A permanent research outpost in the void reaches," Dr. Foster mused. "The Galactic Council won't believe it." Rodriguez chuckled as he ran his final systems check. The Council won't believe any of this. We were supposed to die horribly in the first few hours. Instead, we've turned the most dangerous region in the galaxy into a tourist destination. As the Resilient prepared to leave the ruins, Captain Chun received a priority communication from Galactic Station Prime. The image of Ambassador Keth 7 appeared on the main screen, his expression shifting from smug expectation to confusion as he took in the scene. "Captain Chun," he said carefully, "we were not expecting to hear from you. Your mission deadline is not for another 9 months." "Mission complete, Ambassador," Captain Chun replied cheerfully. "We've retrieved the quantum crystals and data cores from the Keptari ruins. We're heading back to Council space now." Behind her on the screen, Keth 7 could see crew members moving containers of ancient artifacts. Energy beings floated peacefully through the ship's corridors, their forms pulsing with soft light. "Those are the creatures that destroyed 17 expeditions," Keth 7 said weakly. "You mean our new friends? They're actually quite pleasant once you get to know them." It turns out they were just hungry and lonely. A little food and some friendly conversation solved the whole problem. Counselor Yilak's crystalline form appeared beside Keth 7, her voice ringing with disbelief. "You fed the energy parasites?" "We shared power from our backup reactors," Dr. Foster explained. "They only needed small amounts to survive. Previous expeditions failed because they used high-energy systems that couldn't spare any power without shutting down." "But the defense grid around the ruins," Keth 7 protested. "The quantum disruptor beams that destroyed our most advanced ships." Rodriguez leaned into view of the camera. "Oh, that was easy. We just asked nicely instead of shooting at it. Turns out the Keptari built their defenses to welcome scientists, not to fight off invaders." The silence from the council chamber stretched for several seconds. Finally, Counselor Yilak found her voice. "You're telling us that you solved problems that stumped our greatest minds by being polite? And sharing our lunch," Captain Chun added. "Don't forget that part." 3 days later, the Resilient emerged from the void reaches with an escort of energy beings, trailing behind like a comet's tail. Word of their success had spread throughout Council space, and dozens of ships waited at the border to witness the impossible. The communications channels buzzed with activity as alien commanders tried to understand what they were seeing. The humans had not only survived the void reaches, they had made it look easy. "Galactic Station Prime, this is Captain Chen of the U's Resilient, requesting permission to dock," she broadcast on the standard approach frequency. "Permission granted," came the stunned reply. "Base 7 is prepared for your arrival." As the ship approached the massive space station, Captain Chun could see crowds gathering at the observation windows. News of their success had reached every species in the Council, and representatives from dozens of worlds had come to see the humans who had accomplished the impossible. The docking bay was packed with alien dignitaries, scientists, and reporters. When the Resilience cargo doors opened, Ambassador Martinez was among the crowd, her face beaming with pride as Captain Chun descended the ramp carrying the container of quantum crystals. "Mission accomplished, Ambassador," Captain Chun announced. "1 cleared void reaches, complete with new friends and a permanent research station." Ambassador Keth 7 approached with what looked like shell shock. "How?" he asked simply. "Captain." Chun considered the question seriously. "We treated it like a problem to solve instead of an enemy to defeat. We made friends instead of preparing for war. We shared what we had instead of hoarding our resources. But your technology is primitive," Counselor Yilak insisted. "Your ships are built from simple metals and powered by basic fusion reactors." "Sometimes simple works better than sophisticated," Captain Chun replied. "Our backup systems had backups. When something broke, we fixed it with spare parts and determination. When we met something we didn't understand, we tried to communicate instead of shooting first." Over the following months, everything changed in the galaxy. Human exploration teams were quietly assigned to other impossible missions throughout Council space. The broken nebula that had claimed ships for centuries was mapped and turned into a shipping route. The screaming asteroids that drove crews. Insane were discovered to be broadcasting mathematical puzzles in ancient languages. Alien military academies began offering courses in human problem-solving methods and creative applications of friendship. The most popular class was how to share your lunch with hostile aliens. The Galactic Council officially welcomed humanity as a full member, with all the rights and privileges that entailed. But privately, many alien leaders wondered if they had made a mistake. The humans had a disturbing tendency to turn impossible situations into routine missions. 6 months after the Void Reaches expedition, Captain Chun received her next assignment. The Council had discovered an ancient space station at the edge of the galaxy that appeared to be controlled by malevolent artificial intelligence. Previous attempts to investigate had resulted in ships being captured and crews disappearing. Captain Chun read the mission briefing and smiled. It sounded like another interesting Tuesday. After all, how dangerous could a lonely computer be?